The Nathan Manufacturing Company produced some of the most iconic steam whistles of the steam age. From 1910 to the mid-1950s, their 5 and 6 chime whistles were the standard of the industry and copied by railroads all over the world. The whistles were good sounding and necessary appurtenances to the railroads, but at the end of the steam age, they became prized possessions of those who preserved them. Some found their way into private collections, and some continued to make music for short lines and tourist railroads long past the end of steam. They're rare working artifacts from the golden age of railroading that are highly collectible and hard to come by. So it's not too often that two come into the shop from the same railroad. The Kings Island and Miami Valley Railroad in Mason, Ohio, has 2 Crown 440 American-style locomotives in daily service at the Kings Island Amusement Park, and each one is fitted with a Nathan 6-chime. This 3-foot gauge railroad has been taking passengers around the park since it opened in 1972. The 2 Nathans have operated hundreds of thousands of times since they were built and have had general maintenance throughout their life. But at some point, the wear is so great they must be rebuilt to ensure good service for another 80 years. Once the 2 whistles arrived at our shop, we disassembled them so we could see what was worn and needing service. It was pretty obvious where the issue was as soon as we looked at the poppet valves. The poppets were very loose in the bore of the bowl. This allows the valve seat not to line up with the poppet when they're closed. In addition to the looseness, both poppets had damage on the valve faces. Together, these issues won't allow the valve to seal correctly every time it's operated. So the first job was to set up the bowls in the lathe and bore out the center so it was round and straight. We had to remove quite a bit of material to correct all the wear. Once the boring was complete, we set up the poppets and machined off the outer diameter to leave just the center core. A new sleeve was made for each one, and then a slot was machined into each side to allow the fulcrum to move in the poppet. They were heat shrunk onto the core, and then a brass pin drilled and pressed into the sleeve to keep it from ever moving. The outside diameter was turned to the bore of the guide, and the valve face was machined to remove the wear and the damage. Once the valve work was complete, we made new fulcrum pins and 2 new retainer bolts to match the Nathan drawings. The languid plates had been drilled and modified to allow a baffle to be installed at some point in the past. This was something that was no longer needed, so we plugged the holes and cleaned up the surface. The work is now complete, and the whistles are back to factory spec. We can't thank the Kings Island and Miami Valley Railroad enough for allowing us to help preserve their iconic pieces of living history.